Does it ever feel like you have lost touch with your inner voice? Or maybe that you doubt the wisdom that your intuition is sharing with you? If you answered yes, then you are in luck, because in today's expert interview series, we're talking with Stevie Caldarola on how to get that back. And for members of the Rising Beyond community, we are going to do a live experience with Stevie at our next tea time with Sybil. So I'm really excited about that and hope you'll be there with us. I'm Sybil Cummin. I am the creator of Rising Beyond Power and Control. Stevie, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Sybil. I'm so excited to be here with you all.
So I'm going to share a little bit about Stevie so you know why I've asked her to come talk with us today and share her experience. So Stevie can be described as a playful druid, liminal guide, and intuition coach. Stevie has years of experience being a different soul living in a conventional lifestyle. Completely overwhelmed and on the brink of breakdown after many years of trying too hard to survive in the constructs of modern society, including, yes, a 10+ year run of relationships with narcissists, personally and professionally. Stevie discovered that she is a descendant from druid lineage, and stepping back into her power as a magical being, Stevie unleashed her creativity to co-create a life of flow and ease. Oh my gosh, ease, like, yes, please. Stevie helps radical magical leaders to reconnect with their intuition and practice flow rituals regularly, supporting the innovative growth they are here to create. I know that I need some ease, and I know the people that are watching want some ease too. So help us find some ease and listen to our intuition.
Yeah, so important, so important.
It is. So many of the women that we work with have really lost touch with that inner voice because either they had to listen to it and realize, I'm in an abusive relationship and I have to do something. Or if they just pushed it down enough, they didn't have to do anything. So most of the women that I'm working with are now trying to reclaim their lives. So what are some ways you help women, and I assume you help men too, but find or reconnect with their intuition?
Yeah. I mean, it's first and foremost so easy to disconnect from ourselves for many, many, many reasons. So there's probably even layers on top of the relationship that may be the biggest piece that we recognize for why we've disconnected from ourselves. But this is a very, very common occurrence for a lot of people throughout the world. And the number one thing that I have found to be incredibly helpful in reconnecting with ourselves is creating more stillness in our life. So there tends to be, particularly when we're in a situation where we maybe feel like we don't have control, or we need some distraction to keep us, again, like push it down, like forget about it, push it down. Excuse me. Pretend it's not there, because I don't want to feel the things that are coming up from this situation that I recognize that I'm in. It's easy to kind of fill in those spaces with busyness, things to do to keep us distracted from the actual bigger situation at hand. And so to really connect with ourselves and hear ourselves more strongly, it starts with being able to be comfortable in a place of stillness, because once we have that stillness, that quiet will allow us to really start to hear ourselves. And then we have to get to a place where we accept what we're hearing.
Yes. So often, that badge of busyness is easier than sitting with all of those things. And so when you do have folks that you're working with that just sitting with stillness and even quiet causes more anxiety than being busy. What are some ways to like ease people into that stillness?
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely relate to this. One of the practices that I have tried really hard to get into and just have not found, I mean, I do stillness practices every day. And for some reason, meditation, just not my thing in the traditional sense of the meditation, right? Where like when we think of meditation, we might think of somebody sitting on the ground with their legs crossed in complete stillness for like hours, and you're supposed to just not think about anything, right? And that's not my jam because it makes me super anxious. And so I think one of the really it might seem like there's not a direct answer to this, but I think the most direct answer that comes up for me is you have to find what works for you. So there's a lot of different ways in which to do this. For me, one of my favorite ways to allow stillness, and this may sound counterintuitive, but it's I go for a walk. So I'm not actually being still. I'm moving my body, but that body movement is kind of so ingrained in my body. Like I know how to walk because I've been doing it for a long time. Most of us able-bodied people do. And so, you know, I can let my body just move, and then my brain can just kind of allow that stillness in with the distraction of something happening. So there's nature changing around me. There's ways in which I'm still getting some sensory input, but there's a processing that my brain can do because it feels safe in this particular. I have one particular nature space that I like to go to do that. So that's my method for finding stillness. And so you have to kind of try things out and see what works best for you and what helps support you versus creating more anxiousness.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. It's like giving yourself permission to not be doing it right. Like there's not a correct way of doing it. And I also really struggle with meditation. My mind goes all over the place. And when my body is moving and I am busy, or I can feel something sensory like wind or a breeze on my face, I can find stillness there. But it is not the intentional sitting and listening to guided meditation or just sitting.
Yeah. And part of that too, Sybil, is I love that you said there's no doing it right, because part of the practice too is, you know, let's say the sitting with the crossed legs for hours is your thing, but every once in a while a thought comes through. Part of the process then is also just being like, okay, that's my experience for right now, and I can go back to it. Or also, if you sit down and your body's like, hey, not today, babe, like you can get up and go about your day and just release it that today is not your day for that stillness practice. And that's okay. Maybe tomorrow will be too.
And so it sounds like having, you know, that trial and error and playing with things so that it's not just like, this is my only, and it's not working. I have these different options within my tool belt, which I actually don't love that phrase. It's like a therapist phrase.
Yeah.
Like the tools in your tool belt.
Yeah.
But kind of having all these different options of what to use.
Yeah, I think of them more like ritual tools, but I guess that's my druid witchy self coming out. But yeah, I mean, it's really, because again, right, the whole practice is to be more in touch with ourselves and hearing what is coming through us, either through our body, through different signals. Like I sat down today and my hip hurt, so I couldn't keep sitting, so it's not my day to do that. Or if it's coming from your spirit where, you know, you're feeling, you know, more less grounded and more kind of flighty and not in that space to really sit in that stillness or walk in that stillness or tap in that stillness or whatever your practice is. That's another way in which you're kind of, I hate to say this, but winning the game with that practice, because you are listening to yourself, even if the listening to yourself is saying, we're not going to do this for an extended period today. You're listening to what's true to yourself. And in situations like what we were talking about earlier, where you might be in a relationship that there's a little red flag signal that's popping up for you saying, hey, this isn't right for me. This isn't right for me. The more you're practicing that check-in, even if it's an instantaneous check-in where you're getting that signal of this isn't right for me, that's going to help you be more practiced in listening when this little red flag comes up and says, this isn't right for me.
Yeah. And do you find that it takes a sense of, it takes a sense of safety.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I'm hearing is there is a self-worth piece
Mm-hmm.
to giving yourself grace for it not being right.
Mm-hmm.
And trusting that you do know best for your body, yourself. It doesn't have to just be in your physical body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And that's a practice for sure too. One of the, it's been a long journey for me to get to this point of really being secure and safe with myself, and knowing that, all of the experiences that I've had in my past have all been experiences that I was a part of, right? So I showed up to those experiences, and also I kept myself safe through all of them. And so no matter what I did in those situations, it was all as a part of me trying to keep myself safe in those situations. Whether it worked or not, a different story, but that I was making those decisions to try and make sure I survived. And so within this movement towards getting more in touch with listening to myself, I was able to check in each of those moments where I would be getting a signal and say, hey, I know that I'm trying to survive in this moment. I'm trying to keep myself as safe as possible in this moment. Let me check in with this decision and really feel into, is this a quick response survival instinct, or is this something that, actually feels right for me to do? And the more I was kind of checking in, I started to feel safer and safer and safer with myself. And I'm not going to lie, at first, it's hard, right? Because especially in situations where you've been, interacting with somebody who's been gaslighting you or something like that, there's a lot of self-doubt involved with that, right? Like there's a lot of unsurety about your own experiences. But the more that you can sit and listen with yourself, the more you can kind of be curious. Well, I don't want a blanket statement say you can be curious, but that's part of the practice, is learning to be curious with yourself. Because it's really like a muscle. It's a practice to open that space back up with yourself, and then get more comfortable with knowing, hey, this is all happening to me because I'm, or I guess I should say, these signals are happening to me because I'm trying to keep myself safe. Let me make sure that I'm hearing what I have to say. And then you can make an educated decision from there on what you want to do. That's the beauty of having a body with primal instincts and a mind with a consciousness, is we can find the balance of what works best for us.
Right. Our nervous system at times is going to do things and we have no say. It's going to keep us safe, right? Our brain is like, we're going to have you survive, whatever it might be. But I think that piece of listening in is, after a while, and when you're out of these relationships, some of them, those survival strategies are no longer applicable to your world. And so being able to, realize or notice, wow, that was a trauma response. I actually don't need that in this moment because I was safe in this moment. Thank you, brain, for trying to keep me safe in here. I think I don't need that right now.
Yeah.
And so I really like that kind of giving yourself options to make those decisions on what you need in this moment. What can I do right now?
Mhm.
And so these are some of the things that we are going to get to do during tea time. I'm really excited. So Stevie has some exercises and kind of guided exercises that we are going to do during tea time. And so I'm really, again, excited about that and excited to share that with you all. Is there any kind of thought, tip, skill, anything that you'd like to leave our viewers with before, we do that tea time with Sybil?
Sure. Yeah. So the number one piece of advice that I have to consistently give myself is keep breathing. It's so simple.
Yes.
And yet, one of the first things our body does in response when we're in some kind of trauma response is to shallow breathe. And there's a lot more space for stillness. There's a lot more space for checking in when you can really fully let yourself take a deep breath and just slow down for a second. So even throughout the day, every once, like maybe every 4 hours, every 2 hours, set an alarm on your phone if this sounds good to you. And when the alarm goes off, just take 1 or 2 deep breaths and see if that helps kind of just give you a little bit less going on in your brain throughout the day.
And even just that every so often, like that opportunity to check in. There are times when I haven't noticed, but I'm like so busy and got things going on that my body is like tense and tight. And then guess what? That night and the next morning, my back's going to hurt. But I'm so busy that I don't pay attention. Mm-hmm. And so I've noticed those times when I can just take that minute of like, and I'm like, wow, your shoulders were literally up to your ears as you're typing, or you're sitting super weird. Mm-hmm. And you didn't even notice that you were sitting super weird. Mm-hmm. And you're going to hurt tomorrow. You're going to need some Tylenol PM tonight because your body's going to hurt. So yeah, having those opportunities to take a deep breath, just do a quick check-in, and to give yourself grace if you don't do it. Or you check in and you're like, oh yeah, I've been sitting weird for 2 hours. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, you could, if this feels right for you, you could, when you take the deep breath, you could also add in asking yourself, is there anything that you need right now? Particularly as you're getting started, because sometimes, if you're not used to checking in with yourself, just having an openness, you won't get a response, but if that feels right, add that in as well. But I love that, Sybil. What a great addition. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny you said, check in with what do I need right now? Because there are times if you are an over functioner, and so many of the women I work with are, because that keeps them safer in relationships. I'll be asked that question and I have no idea. No idea. And at times that bothers me, that I'm like, how do I not know what I need? Mm-hmm. It's because I don't. And so that's okay too. That you may not know what you need right now, but just offering yourself the option. Mm-hmm.
And again, like you said before, Sybil, the grace of if there's no response, or if your alarm goes off and you're like, nope, this is not the time for me to check in. That's okay too. It's all a practice. There's no winning or losing. It's just whatever feels right for you, continuing to try and listen and hear for that.
Yeah. Well, Stevie, thank you so much for sharing with us. And I will be sharing lots more information of when Stevie's going to be working with us live. And also if you have more questions for her, or you would like to check in on her work, I will be sharing that information as well. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.
Thank you, Sybil. Bye.